The airlock hissed open, and Jake Morrison stepped onto the Zenthari flagship alone. Every instinct screamed danger. The corridor stretched before him like a throat, lined with warriors whose scales shimmered like liquid metal. They towered over him, weapons humming with barely restrained power. Jake kept walking. Behind him, his diplomatic team waited in the shuttle, faces pressed to viewports, helpless. Ahead, Queen Valkaryn waited in her throne room, and Earth's future hung on whatever happened next. The throne room doors opened with a sound like thunder. Queen Valkaryn sat elevated on a platform of crystalline material that pulsed with inner light. She was magnificent and terrifying, her forearms draped across armrests, her eyes like molten gold fixed on the small human approaching her court. Hundreds of Zenthari nobles filled the chamber, their chittering voices falling silent as Jake stopped at the prescribed distance. "You are the one they send?" Valkyryn's voice resonated through translation implants, carrying amusement and contempt in equal measure. Earth must be desperate indeed. Jake met her gaze without flinching. Earth sent someone who gets results. Laughter rippled through the court. The queen leaned forward, her expression sharp with interest. Bold words. "Your species has been begging for trade access to our systems for 3 cycles. We have refused each time. What makes you think today will be different?" "Because I'm not here to beg," Jake said. "I'm here to negotiate." The queen's eyes narrowed. For a long moment silence held the room. Then she smiled, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. "I propose something more entertaining than negotiation. A wager." Jake's pulse quickened, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm listening." "You will face 3 trials of my choosing," Valkaryn announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Ancient tests that prove worthiness among my people. Survive all 3, and humanity receives full trade rights, access to our technology, and protected status in this sector." She paused, letting the offer sink in. "Fail even one and Earth becomes a vassal state under Zenthari control. Your governments will answer to me." The weight of those words crushed down on Jake's shoulders. Behind him, he heard gasps from the observation gallery where his team watched through view screens. This wasn't negotiation. This was a trap disguised as opportunity. "If I refuse?" Jake asked. "Then Earth gets nothing, as before." "But you walked onto my ship, human. You entered my domain. Do you have the courage to see this through, or will you run back to your little planet with empty hands?" Jake thought of the colonies struggling without Zenthar resources, of the medical treatments Earth couldn't access, of children dying from diseases the Zenthari could cure with ease. He thought of his daughter back home, 7 years old, waiting for him to come back with hope. "I accept," Jake said. The queen's smile widened. She had expected fear, hesitation, perhaps a request for time to consult with superiors. His immediate acceptance clearly delighted her. "Excellent. We begin now." The floor beneath Jake shifted. Sections of crystalline material retracted, revealing an arena below. Zenthari technology lifted him smoothly down into the circular space as the court gathered around the edges to watch. Across from him, a door ground open, and a Zenthari warrior emerged. The creature was massive, nearly 12 feet tall, armored in ceremonial plating that looked more decorative than protective, but radiated energy signatures Jake's implants screamed warnings about. The warrior carried a staff that crackled with purple lightning. This was the trial of strength. "Begin!" Valkyryn's voice echoed. The warrior charged. Jake dove sideways as the staff crashed down where he'd stood, leaving a scorched crater. He rolled, came up running, his mind racing. He couldn't match this thing in raw power. The warrior was stronger, faster, had reach advantage in weapons. Fighting fair meant dying. So Jake wouldn't fight fair. He sprinted toward the arena's edge where the gravity generators were visible, embedded in the walls. The warrior pursued, staff swinging in deadly arcs. Jake waited until the last possible second, then grabbed one of the generator nodes and yanked hard. His security clearance was diplomatic level. He was gambling it would work. It did. The local gravity field fluctuated wildly. The warrior, unprepared, stumbled as weight shifted beneath him. Jake had anticipated it, had braced himself. He grabbed the staff as the warrior's grip loosened, twisted it free, and drove the electrified end into the warrior's knee joint where armor plating separated. The warrior collapsed with a roar. Jake didn't hesitate. He swept the staff across the helmet with every ounce of strength he possessed. The warrior fell, unconscious. Silence filled the arena. Then Valkaryn began to laugh, the sound sharp and cold. Clever. You fight like prey that learned to bite. But strength is not only combat. The arena transformed. Holographic projectors filled the space with tactical displays showing star systems, fleet positions, resource markers, a war simulation. Jake recognized the setup immediately. This was the trial of mind. Defend this sector against invasion, Valkaryn commanded. You have 12 moves. Every candidate before you has failed. Jake studied the board. The Zenthari fleet positions were strong, layered, mutually supporting. The attacking force seemed overwhelming. Every conventional strategy led to defeat. He could see why no one had won. But Jake had spent his life studying patterns others missed. And he saw something the Zenthari couldn't see because of who they were. Their entire military doctrine was built on hierarchy, on maintaining command structure, on top-down control. The simulation assumed that. Jake made his first move, deliberately breaking formation, scattering his defensive fleet into seemingly chaotic patterns. The Zenthari observers chittered in confusion. Valkaryn watched silently. Move by move, Jake violated every rule of Zenthari warfare. He used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strikes, sacrificed command ships to save support vessels. The simulation struggled to respond because it was programmed with Zenthari logic. It couldn't predict what Jake did next because he operated outside their framework entirely. On the 12th move, Jake's scattered fleet converged on the enemy's supply lines simultaneously from 8 vectors, collapsing the invasion force's logistics. Victory flashed across the displays. The court erupted in angry chittering. Valkaryn raised a hand for silence. "You did not fight honorably," she said, her voice tight. "I fought to win," Jake replied. "That's what humans do." The Queen's golden eyes blazed. "One trial remains. If you pass, you claim your victory. But know this, human, the trial of will has broken minds stronger than yours. Warriors have emerged mad or empty. Are you certain you wish to continue?" Jake thought of his daughter again. "Of Earth, I'm certain." Guards escorted him to a chamber deep in the ship. The sensory deprivation pod weighted like a coffin. Jake climbed inside without hesitation, and the lid sealed above him. Darkness, silence. Not just absence of light and sound, but complete void. Time became meaningless. Jake floated in nothing. The Zenthari technology began its work, probing his mind, seeking weaknesses, applying pressure to his psyche. He felt memories being pulled to the surface, examined, twisted. Fear came first, primal and overwhelming, then doubt, then despair. Jake had prepared for this. He'd studied human psychology, meditation techniques, every mental discipline he could learn. But knowing about psychological torture and experiencing it were different universes. The void pressed down, trying to erase him, to make him forget who he was. He held on to one thing, his daughter's face, her laugh, the promise he'd made to come home. When the void tried to take that memory, tried to corrupt it into something painful, Jake fought back with everything he had. Humans were stubborn. Humans survived. Humans refused to break even when breaking seemed like mercy. Hours crawled past, days maybe. Jake lost count. The conditioning waves intensified, trying to rewrite his loyalty, to make him worship Valkaryn, to make him accept Earth's subjugation as right and proper. Each time, he pushed back. His consciousness became a battlefield, and he held the line inch by bloody inch. Finally, the pod opened. Light flooded in, agonizing after so long in darkness. Hands pulled Jake out. He collapsed on the floor, shaking, drenched in sweat, but his eyes were clear. His mind was his own. Valkaryn stood before him, and for the first time he saw something other than amusement in her expression. Uncertainty. 48 hours, she said quietly. Most last 6 before they begged for release. You endured 48 and emerged intact. She turned to her court. The trials are complete. By ancient law, this human has... No, Valkaryn cut herself off. Her hands clenched. I invoke the right of personal challenge. One final test, human. Face me in single combat. If you refuse, you forfeit all. Jake's team erupted in protests over the comm channel. This wasn't part of the agreement, but Jake understood what was happening. The Queen couldn't accept losing to a human. Her pride, her entire self-image, demanded she prove superiority somehow. "I accept," Jake said, climbing to his feet despite his exhaustion. They faced each other in the arena again, the court watching in shocked silence. Valkaryn drew no weapon. Neither did Jake. This would be hand-to-hand, or whatever passed for hands. They circled each other. Valkaryn moved with liquid grace, forearms positioning for multiple attack vectors. She struck first. A blur of motion Jake barely dodged. He countered, but she blocked effortlessly. They exchanged blows, and Jake realized quickly he was outmatched in every physical category. Again. "Why?" Valkaryn demanded as they fought. "Why risk everything? Why accept my challenge knowing you would likely die?" "Because," Jake grunted, deflecting a strike, "Earth needed hope more than it needed safety. And because I studied your people." "Studied?" She pressed the attack, forcing him back. "I spent 2 years learning Zenthar history, culture, psychology," Jake said, breathing hard. "I knew what you valued. Honor, personal courage, direct confrontation. I knew if I showed weakness, you'd exploit it. But if I showed strength, if I proved humans could match Zenthari in ways you understood, you might respect us." Valkaryn froze mid-strike. "You knew? From the beginning?" "The trials weren't random," Jake continued. "They were tests of everything Zenthari culture respects. I prepared for each one because I knew they were coming. Not the specific details, but the themes. Strength, mind, will. These are what define worthiness in your society." The Queen lowered her arms slowly. Around them the court had gone absolutely silent. "And this final challenge, did you predict this too?" "No," Jake admitted. "You're not fighting to prove I'm unworthy. You're fighting because you can't believe you were wrong about humanity. About me." He met her golden eyes directly. "But you were wrong, Your Majesty. Humans are worthy. We survive impossible odds. We adapt. We refuse to quit, even when quitting makes sense. And most importantly, we take the time to understand those who are different from us before we judge them." Valkaryn stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she began to laugh. Not the sharp, cold sound from before. This was genuine, almost shocked amusement. "I have ruled for 300 cycles," she said. "I have conquered 12 systems. I have bested champions from 100 species, and never not once has anyone outsmarted me so completely." She turned to record, her voice ringing with authority. "The human has won. By trial, by law, and by demonstrating wisdom I did not expect, he has earned what he came for." She paused. "But I offer more. Humanity has proven itself worthy not just of trade but of alliance. I propose a formal military partnership between the Zenthari Empire and Earth." Shocked silence gave way to erupting debate among the nobles. Jake's team was shouting questions over the comm. But Jake focused only on Valkaryn, searching for deception and finding none. "You're serious," he said. "Entirely. Your species possesses qualities mine lacks: adaptability, unconventional thinking, the refusal to accept defeat even when all logic says you should." Her expression softened slightly. "These are not weaknesses, as I believed. They are strengths we need." Jake thought quickly. This was beyond his authority to accept, but refusing might insult her again. "I'll need to consult with Earth's leadership." "Of course, but know this, Jake Morrison." She moved closer, her voice dropping so only he could hear. "I have never been more wrong about anyone than I was about you. I thought you would fail. I wanted you to fail because your success would mean admitting humanity deserved respect I was not ready to give. You won not because you were lucky, but because you saw me more clearly than I saw you. That is a rare gift." "Then let's make sure both our species benefit from it," Jake said. The formal alliance took 3 more days to negotiate, but the foundation was set that moment in the arena. When Jake finally returned to Earth, he brought not just trade rights, but a partnership that would change humanity's position in the galaxy forever. His daughter ran to meet him at the spaceport, throwing herself into his arms. "Did you win, Daddy?" Jake held her tight, thinking of the alien queen who had bet against humanity and lost. "Yes, sweetheart, we won." Behind him, the first Zenthari ships were already entering Earth orbit, beginning an alliance neither species had expected. And somewhere on the flagship, Valkaryn watched Earth through view screens, allowing herself a small smile. The humans had surprised her. She suspected they would continue to do so. And for the first time in centuries, she found herself looking forward to what came next,